As we always say, it's not easy. We know that. But
But
it's
have
not
to
impossible. But people have done it,
Yeah, right.
so we
You
can
have
do
to
it too.
try it, right?
There is no difference between you and me and Yudhishthir or all Rishimunis. There is no difference. We are given the same set of instruments, VMI. We have to transcend it, like they did it. So Krishna says it's like catching the air in the fist. But it's not easy, but it's possible. It's not impossible. So the question was to give up the desires and fight the desires and things like that. The fighting the desires is repression. That's you suppressing them. That's not going to work. So you have to mold your mind. Mind has a tendency to grab. And it's going to grab. But until you give it something else to grab, it will not give up. You know, it's like baby. You know, the other day I was just talking to my wife. She was going crazy. She's now expecting, you know, grandchildren will come soon and this and that. It's always dreaming of the baby, how the baby grasps. And you just put your finger in it will grasp. So that grasping power itself, you know, it is built into it.
Even
so the same way,
even the example I gave, if you ask a beggar to give up the
right,
cup,
yeah.
he won't give it to you unless you give
Like
in
something
exchange you
better.
give something better.
Then he will give it up very easily.
That's the only reason I started running. I just imagine
Right.
what I'm going to get in return.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because by
Absolutely.
nature we all greedy.
That's how we are. Yeah.
I need something better.
Right. Exactly.
to-
Yeah.
yeah.
So until you fix your goal onto something higher, you're not gonna able to give up all the things which are doing right now. And the only thing higher is the vertical transmission, vertical height that we have to climb. And that's why we talked about that slok, na asti buddhi ayuktasya. So meaning the buddhi is not gonna develop. You're not gonna be able to decide what is right and wrong until you become yukta. Yukta means connected to the higher self. So until you spend a little time in the spirituality, try to realize what the spirituality is about and what is it about, and try to spend a little time to understand, then you realize that yes, there is something better that is possible. It's not a false promise. People have done it. So until you connect, now you have an incentive to do something different than what you're doing right now. From the horizontal plane, the parties and all the groups that we have, enjoy all these things, eat, drink, be merry and all that. Now you have something better to do. That's when you start realizing. So that's when you can start discriminate. Maybe these things are not necessarily good for me. I've been doing this for all these years. All these things have not really taken me anywhere. My life seems like a dead end. I'm not really being lifted anywhere. I'm just flowing with the flow, and that's about it. And all this time, you know, like you came from India to US, and you try to blend in, basically. In the beginning, it's just a society as usual, and you always think that they're so advanced, they're so modern, this and that. So basically, you try to blend in. So you don't want to be apart from the society. And then little by little, you realize that it's not really taking you anywhere. Doing the same thing that everybody's doing, eating, drinking, be merry, and all that. So where is the progress? By nature, the evolution has to be there. I mean, we evolved all the way from tiny unicellular organisms to all the way to the multicellular organism. So there is a plan that is behind all these things. And if we do not evolve, we're blocking that plan. The whole plan of the consciousness is to make us evolve and merge ourselves, back into the consciousness and realize the consciousness. But if we don't go with the flow of the consciousness, then we are kind of a deadbeat. It's in a river current, we are like pushed aside on the side. Eventually we'll make it, but for now at least we are off the stream, of the consciousness. Right? So na asti buddhi ayuktasya na cha ayuktasya bhavana. So bhavana means meditation. The same way, you cannot meditate until you have given up the desires. Meaning not crush the desires. You have to sublime the desires. And that's the word is the sublimation. You have to sublime, meaning replace it with something higher. That's the difference. You're not suppressing. So once you connect to the higher self, you automatically going to say, okay, these things are okay. I've done enough, been there, done that. I want to do something better. At that point, giving up the desires is going to be a little easy, right? So, and then bhavana. Bhavana means meditation. Bhav means inside. It's all inside. Meditation is all inside. So that's when you spend your time inside with yourself is the bhavana. So na asti buddhi ayuktasya, na cha ayuktasya bhavana. Until you connect, meditation is not possible. Na cha abhavyat shanti. If you don't meditate, you're not going to have peace. Until you meditate, you cannot have peace in life. You may think that there is a peace, but your mind is constantly going to race after the objects. One after another, after another, after another. Yes, there is a party temporarily. You drink, you have a like lights are down, you enjoy the atmosphere. Temporarily you forget all the problems, but then it starts again. Next day you wake up and so I have to make X amount of this and that and all that. Mind is just going to keep racing and racing and racing. After you achieve certain object, there's more objects and more objects, and there is no shanti. So, na cha abhavyat shanti. Without meditation, you cannot have shanti. And ashanti shya kuta sukham. If there is no shanti, where is sukh? Sukh is peace. After all, we're running for all these things to achieve what? Peace. And without all these steps, you cannot have peace. So these are the statements written by like established people thousands of years back, even though they did not have internet, TVs, alcohol, all that, but they knew the objects of pleasures are going to interfere. And so it's not going to happen until you reason to a higher level, and the higher level is the path of spirituality. So that's why we went through a lot of discussions, and we made it firmly in our minds, and at least we hope by now, that we realize that everything is Brahma. And once you realize everything is Brahma, then what's the difference? Why do I differentiate between him and him and her and her? Why do I differentiate? It's all superfluous, right? Because everything is Brahma, and Brahma is me. So if I am everywhere else, what's the point? So come out of the duality. Duality is where you suffer. Suffering happens only when you say, oh, this guy is tall, this guy is short, this guy is black, this guy is white. All these are unnecessary talks. At the end, like Deepak says, after 100 years from now, we're all going to be 6 feet. That's all we need. So we're all going to be meeting our Maker anyway. So what's the point? What's the point? And why not do it now?
Yeah.
And enjoy. Actively enjoy the life. So remember, like if you don't have to go through all these dualities and the pains of dualities, then what do you have to do? Whatever you make is enough for you. Whatever you have is enough for you. You're not really rushing and rushing and rushing after making more and more and more. Then what's the point? Then you have so much peace. Might as well enjoy life. Look at the beautiful sunrise. Look at beautiful flowers. Smell the flowers on the way. Look at the bees feeding on. I mean, there is so much beauty out there. And we never spend time to look at all these things, enjoy all these things. Then we'll have a time. Now our mind is going to be free from all these objects of pleasures. So, and it's not a dull life. Believe me, when you're connected to consciousness, doesn't mean you're thinking of God, Hari, 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 Hari all the time. It's not just the name Hari, it's the meaning of the consciousness. Consciousness is everywhere. Whether I name Deepak or Sangeeta or something, they're all Haris. They're all people. When I look at him, when I look at you, and I feel the energy in you, I'm meeting consciousness. And I'm bypassing your external figure, your external shape, external size, external characteristics, but I'm meeting consciousness. So, in a daily life also, it's an active lifestyle. It's a wrong interpretation that people, go into spirituality and now you're sadhu and you don't have to do anything you don't care about. It's not like that. You go to the point that you realize there is consciousness every single place. Karn karn mein or kshan kshan mein Bhagwan hai. So every second you feel consciousness. Every tiny bit of nature or person or everything is consciousness. So basically, it's your choice now. Whether you want to meet Brahma in a grossified form or in a spiritual form. So your vision has changed. It's a different set of mind, that's all. It's a bit different state of mind. So whether I see people in their material form and seeing the same people in a spiritual form, that's the difference. So there was a time, like we said, like we started practice. The goal is what? Money. You want to make money. You want to make a living, this and that. And nothing wrong with that. You do that. But after a while, you say, well, there's something more than that. I need something more than out of this practice. Then you start thinking, so far, money was needed, so Shrenik was more important to me at that time. The ego is more important. I want to collect this. Of course, you never do illegal things and all, but still your eye is on the money. I want to make more and more. I want to see more and more, this and that. You do all these things, but at some point you say, well, even that starts losing the luster. And he says, what else do you do? And what else is out there? The patients are there. Then you start thinking about the patients. You say, okay, these people are going through suffering, this and that and all that. And then little by little, you start seeing God in them. You start seeing consciousness in them. That they also coming to you with the sufferings and they have their own problems and all that. Then you start thinking, what else can I do to make their suffering go away? And that's perfectly the time when spirituality came in my life. Then from spiritual angle, you start looking at every single patient. And then your vision is so clear in life that you can analyze and you can dissect everybody's problems. Like in a second, you realize that this is where your problem is. The guy comes to me and he says, he's crying. 20, 22, 24 years old. He's crying. He says, literally crying. Doc, I'm not happy. I said, I really try every beat. I try to be happy in this. I said, listen, you're running after an object called happiness. Stop running after the happiness, and you'll be happy. He said, you mean to say I shouldn't be happy? I said, no, your object should not be to become happy. You give up that object and you will be happy. So it's just like subtle differences.
Yeah, little different.
Very subtle differences, but they are very practical. He didn't get it though. He kept crying and he left. I mean, you do the best you can, but you know, but there are people who listen, and there are people who benefited too.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a girl who came in and I gave her Gita, and she said she had a severe depression and all that. And 6-7 years later, she writes me a letter. She said, thanks for American girl, and she said, thanks for introducing me to the world of spirituality, which I never knew existed. So all these worlds exist. They are there, and we have the power to tap into that. But we just never spend time because our eyes are fooled by all these external things. And that's where our next 5 minutes of discussion comes, the show of the magic. Because that was on a Nova, on the PBS. They showed the tricks of the magic, right? How the magicians fool you. And we know we are being fooled. We know there is no magic. You know, the guy goes...
It's not reality.
It's not a reality. Magic. We know it's a magic.
Illusion.
We still believe it. We still believe it, and we clap, and we're so happy to look at it, right? The guy goes there, three cups upside down, and he takes the ball out, then this and that. He says, yeah, the ball is living, but then he lifts it, there's a ball there too. But how he slit the ball from underneath his sleeve into the cup, we don't know.
Actually, these fingers.
Yeah, something like that. I'm just saying,
yeah. He pushes
something, he just does that. But it's there, and then how they analyzed the whole thing scientifically. He says that how our brain works. The brain works, and they dissected everything, and they realized, and they got the neuropsychiatrists, neurophysicians, and everybody involved into this. It was a very high-level discussion, right? So they realized that there are a set of neurons in our mind, in our brain. There are certain neurons are designed to follow the action. Movement. All the movement that takes place. The guy keeps using his two hands. One hand he keeps near the pocket. The other hand he's doing this. So naturally our eyes follow this. And meanwhile he takes the pocket, the pickpockets. You know, so he takes the wallet away. And he says, how did it happen? Oh, you thought that something was in it, so you look, oh, there's nothing there. But meanwhile the wallet is gone. Right? So we are designed to follow the motion. Now, if you really look at it from the spiritual point of view, we are nothing but motion. We are the consciousness in motion. We have, most of us are like, we already have discussed all these things in physics. All are basically, we are lot, atoms and molecules and subatomic particles, and there are nothing but motion. Whenever there is a sudden thrust, good morning, when there is a sudden thrust of energy, the energy starts shaking. That generates the particles. We discussed that in a linear accelerator, right? When there is one atom is sent out, another atom is sent out, and there's a big bang that takes place inside. The weight of atom A and the weight of atom B, you put together, it gets smashed into so many subatomic particles. You add up all the subatomic particles,
it's higher.
It's always more than A plus B. Where did the extra particles come from? That's the consciousness. When the consciousness, it has lots of energy. When it gets agitated, it starts shaking. It starts shaking, it gets motion, it creates particles. Basically, it's like a pinwheel. When the pinwheel is in motion, you see like a disc. But when it slows down, oh, it's a pinwheel. So it's a constant agitation of the consciousness that generates the particles. So the subatomic particles are generated. They have fixed existence. They exist for 2 seconds, 2 minutes, 20 minutes. They can photograph it, they can measure it, they have weight, shape, everything. And after a certain time, they disappear. So even the subatomic particle, at the subatomic particle level also, consciousness is always there available to create new particles. So basically, we are the motion. So we are genetically designed to follow the motion. What is the purpose? What is motion? You are motion. You are motion. You are motion. I am motion. So our eyes and our purpose of the whole creation, the God says, go out in this universe and enjoy what I created out of me, out of my energy. The Sat part, the Sat, Chit and Anand, the Sat part is creating the whole universe, right? And then what do you want you to do is, good morning, to go and enjoy. So we are designed to follow the motion. So there were certain set of neurons they found out that they follow the motion.
Even as a defense mechanism.
It is.
Yeah.
I'll come to that. But also there are other sets of neurons which suppresses everything else but the motion.
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful part. Now it's not easy just to hook onto the motion when the guy is standing there and doing something else. So there are neurons in our brain which are designed to suppress everything else around it. They suppress the magician, they suppress the other balls and everything. The most important thing is the motion.
Follow the motion.
And we all do that. And like the whole audience can clap and this and that. How did that happen? It didn't happen. It was made to happen. So we think the magicians are great, but it's just a trick. Right? So the neurons are basically designed. So it's evolutionary. We are built to follow the motion. And that's what it shows. Now, like Deepak is saying, evolutionary also is needed. Like you are in a jungle. You hear the rustling of the leaves and there's some motion. All of a sudden you say, maybe the tiger came, right? It's good to have, even though the tiger was not there, it was good to for a survival. It better be not there than be there and not know it. So the neurons are also for survival. So it's important to follow. The whole purpose of our existence is to enjoy this world and look at it as a magic. It's an illusion. It's a total illusion. So when the magic is going on, we forget about the magician. You know, the magician that is pulling the strings behind it, we never think about it. And that's where we suffer. And we think that these are all the objects of pleasure is the real thing, right? And we forget that there is a magician behind it. So that's what I say. So whether you want to see this world in a grossified form, in a solid form, or in a spiritual form, it's totally up to you. So once you have that spiritual eye, the spiritual vision, then things start moving. So you just have to have that little bit. You have to have patience. Things don't happen, you know. Now, right, so we talked about that. So, and the next thing is the silence that we talked about. And this true silence is not just the not speaking and everything, it's the true silence is inside, where you have no thoughts. Because these are all the 15 characteristics that Shankaracharya is talking about. 8 of them is Patanjali, Yam, Niyam, Dharana, Dhyan, Asana, Pranayama and all those things. And plus he has some of his own also. So we're going step by step. So one is the renunciation. So you have to give up the pleasures. Now, the question is, we want to look at this as a dream or we want to take this as a reality. If you look at this as a reality, you're constantly being followed by the tricks of the magician. And then you're going to keep following it. And you're going to forget about the magician himself. You're just going to look at the magic and it was real. It's like how much importance you want to give it to the brain, to our dream. We see the dreams all the time, but how much reality of you want to believe in it? Once you wake up, you say, oh, it was just a dream. How much importance you want to give, how much money you made in the dream, how much travel did you make in the dream? All these things are immaterial. As soon as you wake up, they'll say, ah, it was a joke, you know, like that. But that waker's vision has to be developed first. We have to realize, only at that level we can say, oh, this was just a dream, right? But sometimes, if the dreams are bad, the waking up is good. If the dreams were good, waking up is not good. Maybe you don't want to wake up, right? The other day I was talking to my wife. My wife says, I was so tired last night. I said, sleeping? How could you get tired? Well, I was bicycling in the dream. I got so tired. So finally I woke up and I'm like, glad, you know. Now I don't want to fall asleep, you know. What if I get tired again?
I got Madhuri Dixit.
He didn't want to wake up.
So I don't want to come up.
So it all depends how much seriously you want to take the dream itself, right?
I understand.
Go ahead, don't hold it.
You're a dirty old man.
Why do you think that's your thing? I was saying or dancing, you know, I got natural energy.
So next is the Maun. We talked about it already, that it's a silence at the thought level, at the mind level. Then how much importance you want to give to the outside world is decided how many thoughts you have. The more thoughts you have, more action you're going to create. More actions, you're going to be more into the real world. And that's how our peace is disturbed. Because every time you speak, there is a chance you may goof up. You may speak the right word at the right time, or you may speak the wrong word at the right time, or right word at the wrong time, or vice versa. There's so many permutation, combination is possible. You're walking on eggshells, right? But when you're at Maun, you're silence, you can't goof up. Silence is silence. It's solid. It's a good foundation, right? The same way, when you act, when you want to do an action in the world, the action may have a good results, it may have bad results. It may be good intended by you, but you may have bad consequences anyway. Or you may have bad intention, may turn out to be good. Who knows?
Yeah.
Everything is unpredictable because everything is thrown out into the real world. What kind of response you're going to get, you don't know. So all these things are walking on eggshells. But when you're just holding steady, you're not going anywhere. You're just sitting quietly. You're sitting quietly. It's a solid foundation. That's what's important. And I'm not saying don't act in the world. I'm just saying, but at the thought level, you can still act. But at your mind level, when you're not a doer, the consciousness is, whenever you do, when the ego is taking place, that's when the suffering comes. When you act with ego, that means you're doing it, and the responsibility is yours. But when you say, no, I'm being driven by the consciousness, you always keep the consciousness in the mind, then whatever the results goes back to consciousness. You don't care. Everything is, whatever good thing you're doing also goes to him. Because the thing is that even if you do good karmas, you still have to be born to get the reward of it, whether you want it or not. So even when you do good things, keep the ego down. It's like in the dream. When I create the characters in my dream, do they have any ego? Can they afford to have ego? I shut them out anytime I want. Even if they want to, they cannot act against my will. I am their God. I created them. Every single character, every single thought, every single action that's taking place, I am the God. I created them. Do they have any say in what they can do in my dream? No. I have all the say. The same way consciousness says, don't have ego. What's the point? At the end of this, my dream, I'm going to shut you out of anyway. You're going to disappear. Like Deepak said, you're going to be 6 feet under after a few years anyway. So what's the point in having the ego? So act without the ego. That's what, consider this as a dream, then the ego disappears also. There is... Now, the thing is that the Mandukya Upanishad says that all these things we do believe is real, then the reality should be available all the time, but it's not. Just like dream is not available during the wakeful state, so the dream cannot be real. So now we laugh, but at the same time, the wakeful state is not available in the dream. Maybe partial of it. In a deep sleep, both of them disappear, right? The dream disappears, and all this disappears. So whatever is continuously present and through all the states is the reality, is the consciousness. We have the consciousness of the deep sleep, we are conscious of the dreams, and we are conscious of the reality of that we call reality, the real world, right? So whatever is present throughout all the states is the real thing, and that's the consciousness, right?
You did yam, niyam.
Yeah, we went through that. Yeah.
Renunciation.
Yeah, we went through all that before you came, I guess. We went
No,
through.
I
So we were removing the snow.
Right. So the question still comes in that the wakeful state and the dream state, both are creations of our mind, right? We know that whatever experience we have in the real world, it feeds into our mind. Mind makes it real. If the mind does not look at certain situation in the real life, that situation does not exist. So there are so many millions of events taking place in the world, but all of them don't exist in our mind. So mind gives them a power. Whatever the mind decides is recreated in our mind. If I decide to hang out with certain people, hang out with certain, to be in certain situations, those people are alive in my mind. So for my mind, that particular segment of the infinite world is alive. The same, so mind is needed. So mind is needed to recreate the experience of the world, but at the same time, mind is needed to recreate the experience of the dream. So the mind is a creator of both the situations, right? So now, the question is, does the mind exist? My friend Pradeep always says that, but about the mind? Mind is there. It all depends how you want to look at it. The mind has a relative reality. It's like a mirage. Whether is the mirage real? Well, whoever believes in it, it's real. Whoever does not believe in it, it's not real. Whoever says, no, it's just a fake, it's an illusion, and he's not going to pay attention to the mirage. He's not going to run after that water in the desert, right? So, it's a belief is everything. So, belief is happening at the mind level. But when you transcend the mind, all the beliefs also disappear. So, what's the point? So, that's how it is. So, how much reality you want to give it is up to us, right? So next is the space.